I'm pleasantly surprised. This is my literal nightmare. Well, obviously, we knew this was gonna happen. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is another installment in asking ourselves if we can trust a certain booktuber with book recommendations. The person that we will be grilling this time around is Nicole from Dusty Book Sniffers. If you are new to this concept, to this series, I am collaborating with a handful of other booktubers to basically ask ourselves, who can we trust? Is it ourselves? Is it each other? Really what happens is every couple of months, a different person is selected to be put in the hot seat. They choose a group read for all of us, so we're all reading at least one book that is the same, and then we get two other books that just kind of demonstrate this booktuber's reading tastes and something that they think that we would really enjoy. And yes, Nicole is next on this list, and I'm not gonna lie, she's the one I am the most afraid of because of the books provided to us. So the group read is The Bandit Queens, and this one I've known that Nicole has adored for quite some time. It was actually her host pick for Battle of the Girl Bands. I meant to read it then, didn't happen to get to it, and now of course I have to read it because it's for this vlog. And I'm intrigued by the concept, but I am worried that it leans a bit too contemporary fiction. There is a mystery involved. There are crimes that are being committed amongst this group of women in a society that is just acting against them. It's pretty much a book in which women become vigilantes. They try to find justice their own way through gray means, and I'm usually all for that. However, the contemporary element is what worries me, mainly because that suggests that it's just not going to be as plot or action heavy. It's more going to be these women in discussion, more about the society, which I'm totally fine with. I don't know how slow burn it's going to be, especially because Indian American writers I've read in the past that I've really enjoyed, they just tend to also keep the pacing, the tempo a bit slower than typical, which is fine. That's part of their traditional writing style, which I really do appreciate and respect. However, I've also been in a bit of a reading slump lately, and the contemporary fiction I've picked up has just not been hitting. So I'm a little bit nervous about that one, I'm not gonna lie. The other two, I have to admit, I've changed the books I'm going to be reading for this vlog, and we're going to see if it works in my favor or if we're going to in the end realize that the person we can't trust is actually myself. Originally, my plan was to read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier and The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart by Holly Ringland, I believe the author's name is. Both of those books sounded really interesting to me. Daphne du Maurier because it's a classic horror. It's an author I have enjoyed before. At least her short form work I've really liked. Obviously, I appreciated the fact that I would be able to include an Australian author into this in honor of Nicole, who is Australian. But that one really made me nervous because of the fact that it's also contemporary. It's described as literary fiction. Romance is also a tag you'll see on Goodreads. And I was thinking, those three genres are really the no-go zones for me at the moment. None of them have really been excellent that I've read recently. Not to say that I haven't had favorites within those genres, but I know that I should actually be avoiding them at the moment, and a classic is always a risk for me unless it's detective fiction. And that is why I decided to switch things up very last minute. Actually, very last minute, and Nicole was so kind and so patient as I was offering other options, and so we've decided to go the route of mysteries just so I can stay in my comfort zone, basically. So The Bandit Queens has crime, so woohoo, excited for that. But the other two I'm going to be reading include a cozy mystery and a historical mystery. The cozy mystery I'll be trying is Beaches, Bungalows, and Burglaries. This one, I believe Nicole only gave 4 stars, so I'm aware it isn't an all-time favorite. The historical mystery I'm reading is by C.J. Archer. It is The Murder at the Mayfair Hotel. I'm very excited about that one because I enjoy historical mysteries historically, and I also have been fascinated by the hotel setting as of late, so I think that one's going to be a slam dunk. I also have been meaning to try that series. I think that Nicole also gave it 4 stars. Actually, I think all 3 books she gave 4 stars according to Goodreads, so at least if they don't end up being for me, It's not like I'm disagreeing with her on a 5-star read. And yeah, we're just gonna see how it goes. But before we get into the vlogs, while I have your undivided attention, I wanted to remind you that I'm not the only one who's doing a vlog in honor of Nicole. So you should also be checking out all of the booktubers in the description below. They include Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading, Krystal from Bomb Book Reviews, Brooklyn from Brooklyn Reads, Bree from 4 Paws in a Book, Julie from Keep Calm with Coffee and Books, Neva from Reading with Neva. Did I miss anyone? I don't think so. I always get nervous. Yeah, all right. Make sure you end up watching their videos as well. It's supposed to be part of a playlist. I'll try to have the playlist in the description too. And also, while you're here, if you want to, remember to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it because it helps my channel grow, and I really get a lot of happy feelings when that happens. Okay, let's get into the vlog and see what we make of Nicole's books and if I can trust her. I am a third of the way through Bandit Queens, and I figured this is a good time to do a check-in. So I'm actually buddy reading this with Brittany, who's also participating in this Can We Trust Nicole scenario, as you know from my intro. And she's been so patient as I've tried to catch up with her because I'm 99% sure she has the audio and I don't have access to the audio anywhere, genuinely. I suppose I'm lying, but the Libby hold is weeks away, and I really wanted to get this done in the week that I'm reading it right now, so my eyeballs have had to just like push on, and it's fine, but I'm pleasantly surprised. Am I loving this narrative? No, not at the moment, but I do feel investment for what is going on with Gita, with Farah, with the other women in this village who are unfortunately dealing with the power imbalance of gender norms within India. And it is interesting to compare, especially because there's a high level of casualness and acceptance of the caste system in which they're living. So no one's questioning that, but these women are questioning their values and their rights to certain levels of equality amongst their men counterparts. Specifically Gita, she is someone who has really grown over the last few years, especially after her husband's disappearance. The book opens with her attending this loan group. Apparently in the society, they end up having this ability to request loans, take out loans in groups, and then they kind of divvy up the payments in that way, and they meet every week, it seems. But at this one group session, one of the women doesn't show up, and the women are kind of awkwardly trying to figure out who's gonna pay for her share. None of the women seem to like the idea of splitting it up except for Gita, and she's like, hey, we could just do 50 each to cover her, and all the other women are like, no, I have to do this, this, and this. And so she's like, okay, fine, I'll just pay for her. And we learn that Farah, the woman who didn't show up, it's because her husband had been beating her, and she is extremely apologetic. She thanks Gita for taking care of her financial sum in their group, but she then asks Gita something that is really shocking in the first chapter. It's to have Gita help her kill her husband, because, as I mentioned, 5 years ago, Gita's husband disappeared, and everyone's assuming that Gita killed him. It's like in the rumor mill, everyone feels certain that she's like a witch, that she brings bad vibes, like a lot of superstition is surrounding her. And Gita has just kind of accepted it because she's like, if I tell them no, I didn't do it, no one's gonna believe me anyway. And so when Farah comes to her saying, can you help me because you did this 5 years ago, Gita just says, no, I'm not helping you, I'm not gonna address this. And certain circumstances lead her to decide that, no, I have to help Farah for her own personal interests, because Gita realizes that she's actually at financial risk from Farah's husband, because he's like, well, you know, if I need the money, I know someone who's been helping Farah out, so I can just like intimidate her, harm her. Which brings me to Kareem. He's the liquor seller of the village, and he does confuse me as a character because he doesn't seem to care that he's like clearly causing these men to go down a road of alcoholism, that they're threatening other women. Like very openly, he was threatening one of Farah's friends, who happens to be Gita. And we know that Gita's husband was abusive, and he also ended up becoming alcohol dependent on Kareem as well. And so Kareem has become this really weirdly supportive character for Gita. He helps her get to one of the major cities to help her get supplies. He doesn't realize that one of her main goals is to get poison to help Farah kill her husband. And while he's there, we learn about the liquor business that he is participating in. There is a vendor that he sells his liquor to, and this person's obviously a horrible person. They are abusive to dogs. They are actually testing really dangerous alcohol concoctions on the dogs to see if they can sell it to people. And they're basically, what's going on is they are having his recipe and replacing it with like alcohol substitutes that are really dangerous, including methanol. And I actually find this to be a perfect read at the moment because I just recorded an episode for She Done It with the host Caroline. It was kind of my like She Done It debut in which I led the episode, and we talked about prohibition in the United States during the 1920s and early 30s and how a lot of people ended up suffering from wood alcohol poisoning, which is methanol. It's like methanol alcohol that leads people to becoming horribly sick and dead. That was like a really blunt way of saying it, but they die. It kills people. It was really interesting to read that here, just serendipitously, and me fully understanding, because I've just done a significant amount of research on alcohol, the legalization of it, and how it is created. So yeah, that was kind of an interesting element that I didn't anticipate, but for now I'm intrigued. I want to know more. I am questioning Kareem because he seems to be a good man, but he also has participated in quite a few things that he actually isn't really worried about. So it seems like it's to his convenience, which some of the men do seem to be that way, that they gain these women's trust, and then eventually once they know that they own them because they're married, they completely switch and start gaslighting, start physically and emotionally abusing these women. So I am kind of questioning Kareem, even though he seems to also be like a good, dedicated father. Interesting. But anywho, again, only a third of the way through. We'll see how far I get. But I'm surprised that it's not as rough as I thought it was going to be. This was probably the book I was the most nervous about, mainly because I've heard mixed reviews. I've heard people love it, but I've also heard people say like, I DNF'd it or I didn't care. So this is a middle of the road book for me for now. And hopefully it gets better from here. You are getting a Leandra without her glasses, mainly because I'm about to go for a walk. I'm gonna go outside, and I don't know, I don't like to have my glasses while I'm doing that. I'd rather walk in the world blind, apparently, and risk traffic accidents, and I promise I walk safely. I have fine vision. I see the cars coming. I digress. Why I am giving you an update now is not because I finished the Bandit Queens. It's because I'm DNFing the Bandit Queens. Oh no, this has not been a great start to this vlog, asking if I can trust Nicole, because my choice to DNF currently places it very firmly in the no, we cannot trust Nicole. But I will argue that it's not only Nicole who we can't trust. I feel like it's myself, but maybe just all of you too, if you thought I would vibe with this book. There are certain elements I definitely enjoy. I appreciate a feminist narrative, obviously, but I will say that this was probably, for the most part of my reading experience, adding up to be a 3-star read. It was fine. I can see that the narrative arc was interesting at its bare bones, but there was a lot of superfluous details, and it was a very plotting narrative. It was very much a slow burn. We were taking our time getting used to these characters, their world, their mundane day-to-day lives, their culture, and I actually feel as though that very much ties in with the expectations when you're entering a narrative that's written by an Indian author. There is a certain Indian writing style that I've gotten used to, and I have liked quite a few books in the past, or at least appreciated them for what they are. To try to name a few off the top of my head, A Toss of the Lemon, Before We Visit the Goddess, The Windfall, all of those books are written by strong writers. And I feel as though The Bandit Queens is also written by a pretty strong writer. It says that she has her MFA, and so she has been trained in writing, but the fact that this is more leaning towards contemporary fiction than it is towards, say, mystery, thriller, I find myself bored, and I was skimming. I was buddy reading this with Brittany, and I was saying that I feel as though I'm at a huge disadvantage by only having the physical book. I don't know how Nicole read this book. I'm assuming it's audio because she consumed a lot of audio, but that could be wrong. But for me, I felt as though I could kind of ignore the slowness you know, just allow it to happen while I'm doing other activities. If I had the audio versus physically reading, I could feel myself being held back from a more action-packed narrative, especially because the premise suggests it. This main character, Gita, is being forced by every woman in her village to help her pretty much kill their husbands. And the reason why I'm officially assigned to DNF, why was I skimming for 200 pages? I am stopping at chapter 18, the start of it, I believe, and I'm at, no, so I read chapter 18, I'm ending on page 194, so I am over halfway, but the cattiness among these women, they are not only amoral characters, they're great characters dealing with the fact that society has failed them, that the justice that is actually being executed is not benefiting women, it's not supporting them, it's not protecting them from the men in their society. And we understand why they're taking the axe, that they feel like they need to, but they also don't support each other. They call each other ugly and fat, and they're always trying to one-up each other. They're very rude to each other, and I don't know if it's meant to kind of like lean into the humor, into a certain kind of cultural respect of the aunties and how they're all kind of rude to each other, but in a loving way. I was kind of getting tired of that. And we did have an event in which one character is at risk of sexual assault. And I was really frustrated by how the other women in the group reacted to her own actions to protect herself, to save herself from being sexually assaulted. I really didn't like the way that they handled it. And that's actually the chapter where I stopped, because I was like, what is going on here? Like, they're not even supporting each other when clear violence is being, you know, put upon them and set in their way. And anyways, so I kind of found after that event that my rating was going to go down to a 2-star, and we weren't even, you know, through the entire book. And so it made sense that I would rather just DNF it while I was not ahead or behind. But yeah, so I'm DNFing this book, and that means that I need to continue the vlog and see if one of the other recommendations from Nicole is going to help me feel by the end of this vlog that I can trust her, because I really want to trust her. I don't know which book I'm actually going to pick up next, so it's going to be a surprise to me as well as you, but I will see you all in my next update. In the face of this tragedy that is the DNF, I am showcasing a couple books that I do agree with Nicole for. Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility. I also really enjoyed, let's see what book I actually chose. There we are. Hunt the Stars, We're Just a Maholic. Yeah, both were great. I am 4% into Beaches, Bungalows, and Burglaries by Tanya Capps, and I'm gonna have to DNF this too. I don't know what's going on. This is my literal nightmare. This is actually giving me so much stress, and I'm so frustrated because I don't know what's going on. I will say that I'm in a bit of a reading slump, but also I feel like I have good reasons for knowing why these books aren't working for me personally. But this book by Tanya Capps does have certain elements that I thought I would enjoy. The fact that it's a cozy mystery, I didn't expect actually to like even give it 5 stars. There have been a handful of cozy mysteries I've given 4 stars, 3 stars, and they're really easy throwaway books in my opinion. They can be a bit cliche, lean on tropes and themes a little too hard to the point where you kind of lose the substance of the plot of the character development, but they're very easy palate cleansers, and that's kind of what I needed in this moment, because this month I have DNF'd every single book I've picked up, and that is not fun. But here we go, adding this to the list, 3 books in a row, 2 for this vlog, and yeah, I'm starting to get desperate. But basically this book follows May. She is a character who's very privileged and naive, especially when it comes to her husband. He's a crook. He's been taking everyone's money. He's been lying about their financial situation, allowing himself and her, his wife, to live this very lavish lifestyle. They have multiple homes across the country. They live in New York City, and May is just used to being pampered ever since she met him. She didn't come from wealth, but she's grown used to it very quickly. And when she learns that her husband will be going to jail for fraud, and that he actually, whether he meant to or not, was implicating her because he forged her signature on everything, she almost had to do jail time as well. But she just got out, you know, by the skin of her teeth. Is that a phrase? I think so. And what she has left to her name is this camping site in Kentucky of all places, and she's like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? And she realizes that the only type of home she has is this random yellow RV, and she really isn't sure where to move on from here. I believe she was a flight attendant before she met her husband Paul, and while all of this actually seems fine, like, am I in love with the narrative? No, but I thought that it could be a really easy read for me, that I wouldn't have to have too much investment. I could just enjoy the listening process, because I did get it on audio, and it did remind me of a few other books that I've read in the past that are cozy mysteries. Rather than a rags to riches, more of a riches back to rags kind of scenario, or just someone's life seems pristine, perfect, fast-paced, and then it's a bit derailed and you've got to go to a slower type of livelihood. For instance, It Takes Two to Mango by Carrie Doyle. That's the first in a cozy mystery series where the main character goes from the busy city life to an island setting, and she's kind of rebuilding her life. Also, MC Beaton's Agatha Raisin series kind of follows that as well in a different format. And I was like, okay, like on paper, this could work for me. It could work for me. And then I was told at 4% that our main character married her husband when she was 25 and he was 61. I beg your pardon. And there's this emphasis that everyone thinks that she's a gold digger, but she swears she isn't. She loved him so much. And I actually would prefer her to be a gold digger. I wish that was the storyline, because I'm just like, oh, you poor thing. He took advantage of you. Like, what is going on? Like, oh my gosh, this just is sad. I really don't understand what kind of energy I'm giving 2024, in which they keep giving me like very weird dynamic age gaps. I'm fine with an age gap. Like, you know what? If it's done well, you shouldn't even really feel the age. But this one, the fact that it's nearly 40 years different, it's very hard for me to ignore. And then in the past, a few books I've picked up have just like kind of fetishized it, and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, what is in the water in 2024? Because like I'm putting out a weird energy and I need to change it. So people give me notes. As soon as I heard that detail, I'm like, how can I move forward? How can I move forward in this? Unless someone can tell me later on, after this vlog has been posted, that she realizes that maybe she was being taken advantage of with her age, with her naivety. But like right now, she is like doubling down, saying that she really truly did love him when he was 61. And I'm just like, this is gross. So we're 0 for 2, and I'm so worried about going into the murder at the Mayfair Hotel. I think that it's the one that has the most promise. I don't know. I really hate the idea of ending things with like a bunch of DNFs or like poor ratings, because I know that Nicole and I have read books in the past together, and just in general that we've both similarly liked, that we have like absolutely adored at times. So this is weird. I'm disappointed in myself and in the process, but we're gonna try to be optimistic and really enter this final book with at least as much openness as possible. So we can do it. Let's go. Friends, we have to stop meeting like this, but I am providing more books to prove that Nicole and I do have similar tastes at times. One of those includes The Murder of Mr. Wickham, a historical mystery that we both loved, and also we have a middle grade that is well loved by most of the community, Amari and the Knight Brothers. I was not going to reach it because, yeah, but it was great. Boy, oh boy, has it been some time since I updated this vlog, and at least I can say that things are looking up, which is such a relief. As you all know, I DNF'd the first 2 books of this vlog, and I wasn't really sure what to expect moving forward, trying CJ Archer's Cleopatra Fox series. It's a historical mystery series, I believe in the late 19th century, and I had high hopes, but I also was feeling that way, at least for the last cozy mystery of this vlog. I was on the fence about the Bandit Queens from the beginning, so I'm not really surprised by the fact that I wasn't really vibing with that one. But with this, I was like, this has been my kind of very comfort genre lately. So if this does me dirty, I don't know what I was gonna do. The first book in the series is The Murder at the Mayfair Hotel, and I really loved the premise. I loved the idea of it being set at a hotel, and I had high hopes with this idea of a main character kind of arriving on the scene, being an outsider and having to get the swing of things, get to know her new family, while also understanding the culture, the expectations, the clientele at this very high-class hotel in London. And I'm happy to say it didn't disappoint. As I said, it has been a while, and unfortunately I just didn't end up taking the time to really update you all as I was reading the book, but I have finished it and I really enjoyed it. I'm going to give it a 3.75 stars, and I could very much see this being a comfort series moving forward, and I can confirm that because I also read book 2 immediately afterwards. I really enjoyed the audiobooks. I can definitely recommend them, but let me give you a little bit of a synopsis of what book 1 actually had within its pages. So Cleo Fox has recently lost her only living relative that she has been close with, her grandmother, and she is really upset by it still. She's still coping, she's still in mourning, and the only near relatives she has are those in London. So she ends up traveling from Cambridge to London to stay with her estranged aunt and uncle, as well as her cousins, at this hotel, the Mayfair, which I believe was the family estate of her uncle, who she isn't a blood relative to, and he ended up revamping the estate to make it a hotel so they can kind of keep in the family while also running this business. The reason why they are an estranged family is because Cleo's mother ended up marrying for love rather than riches. Her husband, Cleo's father, was a professor, and apparently Cleo's grandparents on her mother's side were not very happy about that, and they cut her off. So what we understand there is that Cleo not only doesn't really know her family, doesn't understand the world that they're in, but she did not grow up with this type of affluence. So when she arrives at the hotel, it's all very new, especially the way people are treating her. She's trying to juggle her new persona with the fact that she actually does come from the working class. So I kind of found that to be really fascinating. Meanwhile, of course, as she's trying to find her place in this family dynamic as well as in the hotel atmosphere, there is a death. A woman has been murdered, but it takes a while for people to really understand that she was murdered. There was an investigation immediately, but the hotel guests, many of them are, told originally that, oh, it must be, a poor heart, something else must have happened, but it becomes very clear very soon that she was poisoned. And immediately people are wondering, is it another guest? Is it one of the family in this establishment, or is it one of the staff, someone who's been working for the hotel? And it's really fascinating to see Cleo try to navigate all of these different layers of society and come to the truth. I wasn't as impressed by her sleuthing skills as I would have liked, specifically because there were some elements that she just drew conclusions to, and of course it was meant to add to the drama. I felt as though, as the reader, CJ Archer didn't want me to agree with Cleo, that I obviously didn't believe that this one person could be the killer, but of course maybe I'm giving the author too much credit. But when it became revealed and, Cleo came in with such vehemence to then realize she was wrong, and she caused so much chaos from her false accusation, it's just, oh my gosh, I was just thinking, well, obviously we knew this was going to happen, and I didn't find it that impressive, to be honest, but I did find it really enjoyable. So I gave it 3.75 stars, and because I found it so listenable, it was really easy to listen to while doing other things, and I enjoyed the cast of characters. There are some really great characters within the staff, to be honest, that I just absolutely adored. I then was able to very easily go into book 2, which was Murder at the Piccadilly Playhouse, and this one also involved a lot of characters at the hotel, but we saw our Cleo, our sleuth, also leaving the hotel quite a bit to investigate, to visit people at their estates, and to visit the playhouse, question people. She was far more active as she was pursuing the truth in this one, and that one involved an actress who died under mysterious circumstances. The assumption is that she committed suicide, that she jumped from a certain height, and everyone else is adamant that this character was so self-centered and wanted to achieve and had so much drive that she in no way would have done this. There's no reason for her to do this, and I did find that really enjoyable as well. However, I wasn't as impressed by the character development in this book as I was in book one, especially with the characters that they were interacting with. Some of the social issues that I think the author was trying to highlight, I just think that it could have been a bit richer and a bit more researched. So with this one, I'm probably going to give it a 3.25. Totally fine. I would still recommend it. It's still a fun series, and I can still see myself continuing the series later on. So on that note, I am so relieved to say that I've at least finished a book, actually 2 books in this vlog asking if we can trust Nicole. And with that question, my answer is actually going to be a question and response. Is it that we can't trust Nicole, or is it more so that I can't trust myself? Because I obviously did put a bit of a wrench in this situation. Not only did I enter this vlog in a reading slump after a very tiring but amazing month of reading in June, but I also ended up switching up the roster very last minute. Nicole was game for it, but who knows what would have actually happened if I read the original books recommended by Nicole. Maybe those 2 books would have been amazing for me. I'm still interested in them, and I could see myself reading them later on, but I thought that I was going to be leaning on some really safe recommendations with 3 books that involve crime, mystery, intrigue, the things that I tend to read, and I may have been the saboteur. I may have been the saboteur for this vlog. So in reality, you really shouldn't be asking if we can trust Nicole, at least for mine. It's really if I should be trusting myself, and I'll say the jury's out because there were some ups and downs. I'm gonna be keeping an eye on myself. I don't trust me as far as I can throw me, but I'm very, very pleased that we were still able to highlight Nicole because she's so lovely and she does so much on her channel that you definitely should go check out. Dusty Book Sniffers is one that provides vlogs, provides book recommendations, participates in readathons, and has a Patreon that looks so interesting. And we love the idea of creating more friendship. So the friend zone sounds exactly like something I would want to be a part of. So thank you so much, Nicole, and thank you so much to all the other booktubers who are participating in this vlogging series. I hope you are all a bit more successful and that you trusted the process more than I did, because I do think that that's what led me astray. All right, thank you all so much for being here to the end. If you enjoyed yourselves, be sure to like the video. If you want to defend both of the books that I DNF'd here, please do so in the comments. I would love to see it. Maybe I'll have to pick these books up again if, I want to give them a second try. And also consider subscribing if you're new here and this is your first experience with me. I hope it was a good one. All right, thank you also to my manor guests, my sleuths, my witnesses, my suspects, and my corpses. You were all so lovely. I really appreciate your continued stay with me at the manor. All right, everybody, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.